Inside Simplify, you have the ability to input your hours 3 different ways. So 1, you can sync your hours. 2, you can upload your hours through our import worksheet. Or 3, you can manually input them one at a time. So let's start with the manual process. So let's go into the invoice billing. It's broken out into different week endings, or you can choose check dates, right? So that way you're keeping all of your files each week in their own little, think of it like an accordion file, right? So I'm going to go into this week's with check date of this Friday, and we'll go into Juan's Tacos, and we're going to manually input some hours. So when we click on the client's name and we click add payroll invoice, when we hit this little box, billing cycle date, it'll pull everything that was already preset up. So it says when the payroll invoice date is. Maybe you always invoice on Wednesdays, so that's why you're seeing it on the 15th. It's saying what the pay cycle is. So this is from Monday through Sunday. And then if there's a late charge, which is set up in the client's profile, then it'll automatically pull this late charge, late percentage in here as well, right, to add it into your invoice. So once we click add, it's going to create an invoice inside here for us. So once I click on this invoice, give me 1 second. We're going to update payroll. Again, this is doing it the manual way. So when we add a box, you're able to then select which employee it is that you're trying to pay. So let's go to Jason. And how this is pre-populating this information is based off the job order, right? So inside the job order, it'll say what the standard hours are, what the employee's pay rate is, what the markup is based off of what classification you put them in. If there was a location or a department, what work comp class code, it's going to show it all inside here, okay? So it's populating 40 hours because that's his standard. It'll automatically drop him down again because maybe he has 2.4, but this time it's overtime. And you'll see that it'll automatically calculate the overtime rate and knows it's 1.5 time. Let's go to the next person. Let's do Joshua. And let's say Joshua's 38 hours. And we're going to add Joshua again. But he had 1.9 overtime. And as you can see, you're just picking who. So I'm going to click Anthony. And we'll keep it at the 40 hours, but maybe Anthony got a raise. It's not 15 an hour, it's 15.50, right? So in doing that, it'll automatically do what the new sum rate is, and it'll automatically calculate the new total. But your team still has to go in and update Anthony's profile to the right pay rate. If not, it's always going to show the wrong one, and you're going to have to manually override it inside the system, okay? Once you go ahead and click create, it's going to bring that information and drop it down. So we did 5 entries. Now let's just say we're reviewing the time cards and, oh, wait, he didn't get 40 hours. You click on the little pencil. You easily can go in. It was actually 39.5 and click update, and it's going to update the information inside the system. So remember, ours does 2 folds. It's creating the invoice for the client. So we have 10 different invoice formats that you could select from. So if we PDF it, you'll see inside here, it says the description, the type of pay, is it regular, is it overtime, what the units, so how many hours, what the bill rate is, and what the total amount is, right? So this is just one of our formats. It tells you how many hours are regular, how many hours are overtime, okay? So it's creating the invoice for the client, but at the same time, it's also creating the payroll export for your third-party payroll provider. So that way they know how to process the payroll for your employees. So let's go back into invoice billing. And now let's import one, okay? So I am going to pull up Anthony's from last week, so that way I have that really quick. So let's go to here, let's go to hours. Let's look at Anthony's timesheet. And so you will get this, you'll be able to download this every single week of what the hours were from last week. And you can then go in, if you want to have your team go in and update this format in Excel, if that's easier for them than manually inputting them. So if I wanted to do Joey 40 hours, actually he was 38 hours. It shows him as regular. You'll see Alan, it shows regular, I'm going to say 39, but I'm also going to say that we need to insert a line, and I'm going to add Alan again, but this time Alan had OT. So I'm going to say 2 and it's OT, right? And so you can see it's pulling all the hours from last week if we need to delete this person's double time because they didn't have double time this week. You can click on it, you can delete it. If you currently use a time and attendance company, we can map it out so that way it pulls it from there. So that way it'll save you this part as well. And then you would just import that template into our system, right? So we're gonna go ahead and save the worksheet. I'm gonna exit out. And so now I'm gonna go inside of Anthony's, and this is how you could upload, right? So import, we're gonna import our batch. I'm gonna browse for the file. I'm gonna click on Anthony's timesheet, and I'm gonna put import. And because there's over 100 different transactions in there, you're gonna see it's gonna take a little bit of time, a couple seconds, and it's gonna load all of that content in there, loaded successfully. So now let's go view the data, right? So you will see now it's gonna pre-populate all of the information inside the system, right? So you're seeing all of these transactions inside the system. Okay, so instead of you having to manually input them one at a time, it's automatically pulling it in here for you. So a couple other things inside our setup. So sometimes, let's create one more box for this person. I'm gonna do Alan. And for Alan, I'm gonna say it's 12 hours and I'm gonna call it retro. Okay, so I put retro pay. I'm going to put this as not payroll. And the reason why I'm putting not payroll is because we already paid him last week with our payroll provider, but we need to bill our client this week because we forgot to put him on, right? So once I click create, it's going to add it into the already created cycle. But that not pay, again, it allows it to show up on the invoice, but not show up on your payroll export to your payroll provider, okay? Same thing with not pay, you can also do an add charge detail. So when we click on add charge detail, you can add boxes. Maybe you're charging for ACA, maybe you're charging for drug tests, maybe you're charging for direct placements. So now you can add these as line items. So I'm gonna call this a service charge. We're gonna list it as other, and in the description, I'm gonna say drug tests. And then I'm gonna say it's $5 times, we did it for 10 people. So the amount is gonna be $50, right? This is not payroll. So we're gonna click not payroll, but in doing this, it's gonna add it now to the invoice, and it's gonna show that it is gonna be $50 that you're adding, but when we look at the payroll export to your third-party payroll provider, this will not be added on that sheet. So that way there's no confusion. So let's go ahead and go back really quick. And let's view this invoice. That way you can take a look at it. And again, how our system is set up is it's client centric. So if I had 2 people working at 2 different companies, because it's pulling it through the job order, it's always gonna know what pay rate is assigned to that individual. So now no worrying about, oh, this person makes 15 here, they make 14 there. How do we do that? Now the system will automatically know and make sure that it populates it correctly. So you can email it directly to whoever the contact is inside the account. You can create it as a PDF if you like to download it. One other thing that you're allowed to do inside our system, so you'll see it's breaking it down by the type, the employee, what the employee makes, their rate, how many hours, what the bill rate is, and what the total amount is. But I'm going to go to the very bottom so that you can see this breakdown, which is a little bit different. So it shows the line item of the service charge for the drug testing, the $50. It brings what the total week ending is. And then you'll also see the breakdown of it showing you how many hours were regular, how many were overtime, double time, retro, and sick. So that way they can see. And then obviously it's not adding that $50 service fee because that wasn't a payroll item. But that way they can see how it came up to the total amount of your invoice. Okay, so we set this up again based off of knowing that you have people that might go to different clients with different pay rates. So this is what allows you to be able to do that in our system. One other quick little thing, and then I'll go ahead and open it up to questions, is that you're also able to go in and attach the pay cards. So if you go inside here and if I attach and I want to do the pay cards in here, what it does is when I go into reports and when I go into the funding report and I select all of the clients for this week's period, you'll see that it's going to give you a summary of the invoices and the invoice totals. When I hit email, it's going to email me the PDF of all of those invoices, as well as if I attached any time cards, it's also going to send me all the different time cards that I attached. So that way then you can just forward that over to your funding company. Kind of helps save you a little bit of time and the frustration of going back and forth and making sure everything's complete. And then if you ever have to reference it, you know that it's attached inside the pay cycle, so it's easy for you to be able to find an update or a reference. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions.